Hello, I'm John Grom, and welcome to our 159th Right and Left Discussion Forum. We hold our televised discussions twice monthly to demonstrate the value of civil, productive, open-minded political dialogue. Today, our panel will discuss a privilege that the United States Congress claims for its 535 members and nearly 2,900 staff. That is the right to trade stocks with information obtained in the course of their congressional duties. Today's panel, beginning on my left, is Patty Haskins, member of the Wadsworth City Council. On her left is Bryan Laubaugh, president of R&B Financial Services. On his left is Joe Gaines of the faculty of the University of Akron. And on his left is Dr. Ronald Chamberlin, retired senior research chemist. Patty, buying and selling publicly traded stocks excuse me, with the benefit of non-public information has been illegal for decades. But the United States Congress has granted itself immunity for itself and its staff so that they can freely buy and sell stocks on the open market with private information obtained in the course of conducting business of of Congress. What do you think of that?
This is something I don't even think is like a right or a left issue. I think it's something that if everyone feels the same about it, that it should not be allowed. What has been presently, what the problem on this is that there were rulings out there saying that you against insider trading, that you couldn't have non-public info for private profit, but the Congress and federal employees were all carved out of this. There had been concerns about it going back in like 2008. There were very big concerns that, for example, if someone was on the Health Commission and there were a drug that perhaps Medicare had decided they weren't going to accept for payments, that congressmen or senators, whatever, could pick up that information and purchase or buy stocks or sell stocks in order to manipulate and make money. It was quite common for congressmen who make about $174,000 a year to go in, and 2 years later were multimillionaires, which this is where the problem was coming from. There were efforts in the Congress to pass what they called the stock law, which was to stop trading on Congressional Knowledge Act. But it went down in flames when it was first tried. I mean, they'd get 6 votes or 5 votes, went absolutely nowhere. Now, that was until 60 Minutes did a report on this in November of 2011. And what they brought up were individual cases where various members of Congress had made money, supposedly by purchasing of these stocks. And while it was not illegal, it certainly appeared unethical.
I think they featured Nancy Pelosi in that.
Well, I was going to get to that. They featured people
I wanted to make sure I got it in.
Now, wouldn't you have been prouder of me that I would have mentioned it?
I would have. Had I just shut up, everything would have been all right.
See, her name is written right there.
It's almost like Groundhog's Day, isn't it?
Yeah. For example, they talked about Boehner, who did this during the health care debate and made a substantial amount of money. They talked about Dennis Hastert, the former Speaker of the House, who, of course, had his other problems, but he was involved in this. They talked about Nancy Pelosi, and hers involved the purchase of Visa stock. And, of course, when they questioned them, Boehner said that this was totally idiotic, and Pelosi denied any problems with this. Well, this created such a furor amongst the community, amongst the public, that immediately, almost thereafter, in 2012, Joe Lieberman brought the Stock Act up for a vote again. And this time it passed in the Senate by a vote of 96-3, and in the House by a vote of 417, I think, to 2, which was great. Now, the only problem they had was that in 2013, they decided to change one of the clauses. And the clause that they decided to change had to deal with access of the public to the financial information of the senators, congressmen, and also a lot of other federal employees. And it was decided in 2013 that they didn't want to have that part of the Stock Act still in place. So Eric Cantor actually pushed it through in the House, and I don't know who pushed it through the Senate. There was concern about this because they did, I forget the term for it, but there weren't many people in, I think it was unanimous consent is what they used in order to pass it. And what they did was said that we're not going to put all this information online anymore. If you want to have it available to you, you have to go to the basement. And so I'm assuming it's of the house, and I'm assuming that's a skiff. I assume it would be a skiff, and you'd have to get the information there, and made it much more difficult. Now their reasonings were they did not want to get the financial, they said they didn't want to have financial information available to criminals that are out there. Okay.
Congressman, criminal.
Yeah. The other thing is the federal government employees were very, very concerned about this, and their unions objected to it. I don't know that I buy all of that, but.
Well, the one thing to point out is kind of interesting. The Stock Act was submitted several times, and it didn't come to a vote. It had like 2 sponsors. The day after, or excuse me, within 5 days of the 60 Minutes report, it picked up 84 sponsors. This tells you something about the, well, anyway.
You okay?
Yeah, I'll be fine.
Sorry, babe. It is that time of year,
Yes,
isn't
it is.
Oh,
Thanks.
Oh.
a glass of water appears.
Brian, this
Magically, yes.
This is a topic that you're well familiar with.
Yep.
I can tell that you are because you don't have any notes in front of you.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you that whatever they're doing needs to stop. It's wrong, whether it's legally correct or ethically wrong. It's wrong on all fronts. People go to prison for insider trading. The compliance requirements in my industry on this particular issue are unbelievable. I'm well aware of individuals that are insiders. They have a very small window to exercise their stock options, to sell stock. It has to fall within a variety of, a certain period of time after earnings have been announced, anything that is publicly material to the company. So there are a lot of constraints. It all came about through the Enron fiasco. Sarbanes-Oxley was put into place. The requirements for individuals in my industry, as a fiduciary, any sort of trade that I would put out there for my personal account, it has to be cleared because they want to make sure that I'm not trading ahead of a client. And so I think the same rules that apply to the public need to apply to Congress. The same reporting requirements. I think that the reporting requirements should be more strict and stringent for members of Congress because they do get a lot of information that is actionable, that they can trade on. You gave one example as far as the pharmaceuticals. You could have an issue that comes up. I mean, the Boeing issue with this, the issue that they're having with the 737 MAX. That's an actionable material issue with that company that if the FAA knows something and the congressman knows something that let's say Boeing stock has actually been depressed here because of that, the congressman knows that the FAA is going to clear the jet and it's going to be flying. He goes out and loads up on Boeing and makes a tidy profit when that news is announced to the public. I would go far as to say that if you want to serve in Congress, that you can't trade.
You know, it was funny because in that 60 Minutes thing, they talked about in 2008, you know, here's this right before the big market drop.
Yeah.
Hank Paul, senators, congressmen were going into Secretary of the Treasury's office, Hank Paulson, Ben Bernanke's office, and then suddenly they weren't losing money.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I think that you know, if you're going to be a public servant and you're going to have that type of information at your disposal, then you should basically, you know, give up your right to buy or sell. You know, a lot of the folks that report the news on the business side have agreements in their contracts where they cannot. You know, it's in essence sort of a quasi-blind trust. They don't know what's in there. It's managed separately. They have no discretion over it. They just give them a set of parameters, and there's, you know, they don't know what's in there. So, and they are, you know, prohibited from owning particular, you know, companies. So yeah, I just, this is just an abuse of power.
now,
and
insider trading is illegal for them.
Right.
It's just proving it. Is that the?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Martha Stewart went to prison
Right. For exactly that.
for
yes.
this.
Well, actually,
you know.
for lying about it.
For lying about it. Okay, so they got her on the lie.
Martha Stewart went to prison for telling a lie in Congress.
Yeah. Well, yeah. No,
Think about that
yeah,
for a minute.
yeah. That'll blow your mind. But so there's the same rules for the public. If you're a public officer or you have material information, even if your brother-in-law works for so-and-so company and decides that he's going to give you the hot tip, you know, you could have, you know, any profits disgorged. They could ban you from, you know, from trading. They could, you know, kick you out of the industry, all that kind of stuff. And I think those same rules have to apply to Congress. I think if they're going to serve there for their entire life, then, you know, they can just...
You know, I think it's almost impossible for Congress to pass a law that would get rid of all of the loopholes.
You could use a blind trust. You could use your wife. You could, you know.
Yeah.
Right. There's.
Well, they've never clearly defined insider trading or insider information.
Yeah.
For instance, right now, the way it stands, it's not insider information until it's been voted into law. But everything that happens before then is free game.
But that's for them.
That's for them.
That's for them. Trust me, everybody in the industry knows the definition of insider
Yes.
trading. Every person that you deal with, every fiduciary, every registered representative, every compliance department knows exactly what the government is looking for when they come out and go through your shorts to determine what you did. And there's such heavy compliance on this issue that nothing gets by them anymore.
Well,
So-
one of the other things in Congress is that they had been, I guess, not subpoenaed, but requested, ordered, or whatever, to appear before the SEC to respond to some of these charges of insider trading. Well, they're relying on Article 1, Section 6 of the Constitution that says, members of Congress shall in all cases be privileged for any speech or debate in either house. They shall not be questioned in any other place. So according to their rule, you can't even ask them. The SEC
That's stretching it, though, it sounds like.
I don't mean to butt in there, Joe, but
No, but it is. I mean, and I agree with everything that's been said. You know, I'll go by the laws. Whatever the law is, I'll go by it. All right? Why isn't my congressman doing the same thing? I mean, this is for us, and they are supposed to be representing us.
okay. Well, I'm going to chime in on that after a bit, but
I'm sure you will.
I've got a theory.
But the thing is, if I could be arrested for it, why can't they? And I want to know how it got passed. I mean, I know how it got passed and everything. You've said that. We've gone over that. But why did it get passed is my question. It's wrong in every way you look at it.
It is better now. right, than it was.
Better in what way?
I mean, the Stock Act was passed.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But who knows what?
Well, yeah.
I mean, if you have to go down in the basement to find the records when everything else you can get online and is searchable.
That's true.
You
And
know,
how far can Congress go?
Yeah.
I mean, I've lost some trust in them. And
Yeah.
I haven't lost trust in Republicans or conservatives. I've lost trust in Congress, Democrats, liberals, everybody. I mean, if they're going to go this route with this, what else are they doing also?
And how many times lately have you heard congressmen during impeachment hearings say, nobody is above the law? Nobody.
Yeah.
Except us.
Well, nobody is, but they need to know that too.
Yeah.
I mean, especially in this case.
Ron, what are your thoughts?
I think we're all in agreement. We got a bunch of bad guys around here. I think it's a clear case, really, of absolute power corrupting absolutely. People in a position like this are protecting their own special interests, and I mean, I agree with it's wrong. It's. I mean, I happen to be living in Connecticut, and Martha Stewart was up the road in the federal prison. There, you know, we sort of followed that case a little bit.
So giving cooking lessons.
Giving cooking lessons. Yes.
She was in charge of craft day.
Exactly. It was a sort of a medium security prison in Danbury. Probably not too bad a gig. But yeah, particularly the constitutional thing, you know, it goes back a long way. Here's the founders protecting their own business interests because most of them had a little degree of wealth under the society at that particular time. They were landowners, they were merchantmen. They had some interest to protect, and I think that's a clear case of it happening. And
I don't think that it's a case that congressmen, the morals of members of Congress are no different than the rest of us. They're just behaving the way people behave when they have the opportunity to
make
do
money.
that. Yeah, I mean,
Power corrupts more power.
as Ron
And if you
stated.
take away the legal requirement to do otherwise,
You know, I tried to figure out why this was allowed in the first place.
yeah.
And I read something about the fact that members of Congress are not representing a corporation. I don't understand that, but they said because they didn't represent a corporation, they could do this and they, yada, 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 because it wasn't going to impact a business of some type.
Some satirists said Congress ought to wear jackets like NASCAR drivers so we know who their sponsors are.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, but people in the public sector have gone to prison for much less.
Oh,
Yes.
absolutely.
Because it doesn't just because Patty doesn't work for a corporation, if Patty's son or Patty's cousin calls her up and says, hey, you know what, I was in a board meeting at XYZ. You might want to go out. I'm gonna send you $100,000 and I want you to buy, because they won't ever make they'll never make the connection. Oh, trust me, they'll make the connection in a heartbeat. And they'll start looking at those relationships, and not only will Patty have problems, but whoever gave her that information is going to have problems. So I think that the rule should apply to everybody. There is no insider trading, and you should just automatically, carve yourself out of that. If you're on the Armed Forces Committee or you're on a committee that has contracts to any company that does business with the government, I mean, you're out. Just out.
I was surprised in researching this topic that there was no law against insider trading for anyone until 1984.
Right.
Isn't that amazing? That how many people made fortunes
They're now
legally?
running for president.
Pardon me?
And are now running for president or are president.
Yeah.
So, the thing is, how do you correct this? It sounds like, okay, it is illegal now for this. The problem is being able to determine when Congress or federal employees are doing it. So what can be done to correct the situation?
prevent it.
Well, apparently
Prevent
SEC has the power, but I have an idea Congress might be able to take it away or modify it. I mean, it's the SEC that passed, or was formed in 1934.
The process and mechanism is in place. All they have to do is take what they do to the public and put it onto Congress, and they'll have reporting.
When you say they will do that, who?
The SEC.
The
SEC and has enough process and mechanism in place to monitor insider trading. They should do the same. They should make the same requirements on the Congress. We don't have to create anything new. We just have to say we're going to do a nice little small version for Congress.
Congress falls back, though, on the Article 1, Section 6, saying they can't even be questioned by the SEC about anything.
Is the
Pretty broad
SEC
interpretation of
protected
that, I think.
in the same way that a Congress, because they're a federal employee, right?
Yeah.
So they fall under this.
Yeah. Well, there needs to be a groundswell of people saying, hey, wait a second, you're taking what has been said here to an extreme. I really have a hard time accepting that you can't question a congressman. He sort of has immunity, from any sort of questioning, and he can do whatever he wants. I think they're stretching the definition of that, and they should be able to say, the SEC should come in and say, listen, we want you to disclose everything, every holding that you have, and we will monitor it for you. We'll do you the favor, and all of your trades, all of your holdings, we'll monitor that to see if there's any sort of conflict. I mean, you take any sort of officer in a corporation, the reporting requirements, they have whole departments in their company that take care of the reporting requirements because they don't want to run afoul of the government. So Congress needs to have that put in place.
I think they solved the problem with the Stock Act in 2012. And that it was a legitimate vote. I think 96-3 in the Senate, 417-2 in the House.
Yeah.
But the next year, and President Obama gladly signed that into law, and it was like problem solved. Except the next year, late in the year, when half the Congress was already gone on Christmas vacation, they decided to rush this thing through. It took the Act of 2013 was passed by unanimous consent. There was hardly anybody there. The whole thing took 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And that was bipartisan.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing. It was not one party that did that.
Well, Article 1 states what? It states that they have the privilege to have speech and debate. Congress does. It doesn't mean that they can't be questioned about it.
Yes, it does.
They can't be questioned? Well,
It can't be questioned by
They should
anybody
not be
else.
questioned by in any other place.
Yeah, well,
It gives them the right to say.
they're saying they don't owe an explanation to anyone for what they do. I mean, that's the way they're interpreting it, and they're getting away with it.
Yeah.
I think they need another 60 Minutes report on this to show where. I mean, and I mean that sincerely.
Where's Dan Rather when you
No,
need him?
Yeah.
They'll wait a couple of weeks until we've all forgotten about it
Yeah.
and go back to business as normal.
But it did have effect the last time it was done. And if you,
But when you think that with the original Stock Act, anybody had the opportunity to go online and go to any congressman and find out what stocks they've been buying and so.
Yeah.
That was too restrictive until they decided, well, we're going to exempt congressmen and their staff.
I
from
saw that and I wondered, privacy issues. Anybody in the country doesn't have the right to come in and look at my financials. And so what you're saying
So the
that's
solution, the solution for me would be the wedding cake. So for instance, Patty is a public official in Wadsworth. She's a local official. Her reporting requirements will be at the top of the wedding. Very little. You have to file.
I have a financial report I have to file every year.
To disclose all that kind of stuff. But the farther up you go, when you are a congressman, you're the base of the wedding cake. We want to know everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the privacy that you're giving up because you are a public servant on a federal level and you have the ability to say yay or nay to a contract.
So you are saying that someone, let's say, who's in president's position should have to file their tax reports.
I'm saying,
No, we
yeah, you have to file your tax reports, but if you're going to
But-
sue me
but-
to get them,
But no, they should be visible to the public.
yeah, but you don't.
Yours are, mine
but,
are.
Yeah, but you don't go and.
Well, next week I
file a
think we
lawsuit
all
to get
ought to ride into Washington and whip them all into shape.
That sounds
Well,
good.
I'll tell you. Right
Thank you
there.
very much for a good discussion.